Right, welcome everyone to the fourth and final part to our Sony Video Bootcamp Series. I'm Manny Tejeda from Foto. We're welcomed again by Jean Suche from Sony. Yeah, we're always gonna have fun with that name.
It's Such, but yeah, sure.
All right, I'll try to
That's good. Hi, Manny.
No, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. Sorry I wasn't around last week.
Josh had us covered. It was
Yep,
great.
Josh is great.
Yeah. As always, everyone, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll answer them as they come along. And with that being said, Gene, you want to start it off?
Yeah, I know, right? This is like a rough start, right?
We have a lot to cover. So
we have a lot to cover. Yeah, we do have a lot to cover. And thanks a lot for having me back. This is our final installment for the Video Camp series. I can't thank PhotoCare and Manny enough for putting on this little journey we're going to go on, and we're going to try to do our best here to kind of wrap it up, and at least in a small package so that everybody can get a fine tune of, at least in the basics, on how you can get started with doing video or assembling, or at least going from theory to actually putting something to pen to paper, or videos, lens to subject, and then get something and spit it out. Then basically, have people enjoy it.
All that raw footage has to go somewhere, and it has to be something creative and powerful, so you can build a client.
Exactly. So why don't we go back in here? We're going to go back to kind of almost where it started. is my little opening screen here. So basically, for everything that you want, especially with video intuitive and tutorials, still tutorials, anything that you can think of, especially on the Sony mirrorless side, which does cater to both stills and video clientele, go to alphauniverse.com. You'll get a lot of inspiring stories there, set techniques, all this other fun stuff that we like to share, as well as some funny stories and great articles that you might find interesting. And it also loops down to YouTube videos, Facebook, all that other fun stuff. So we'd love to have you as part of our mirrorless family, and hopefully share your stories as well. Let me see if I can actually get this slideshow to work here. Okay. So we started off with goals. At the beginning, we had quite a few things that we were going to go over through different, about 4 sessions. And today we're going to kind of lock it down into shooting, editing, and delivery systems. Manny, who is an amazing shooter as well, I think, there are different forms of how you put these type of product pieces or narratives or whatever. It's how you put them together, and it's important to kind of discern exactly what you're going to go through to get to the final stages of your project. Let me go in through here. I was going to talk a little about the lenses, because honestly, lens selection is such a huge deal with how DPs, cinematographers, and of course photographers envision their project. And the lens choice that you do choose is going to make a major impact on your story, and whether or not you're doing type of set pieces, talking heads, or you're doing run and gun, which we're going to talk a bit about today. It's going to matter to whatever end. The means to the end does start with the lenses. And I don't know, I know a lot of people like zooms. I'm a prime guy, so I like to think out of my project well ahead of time with primes. But as you can see, Sony has so many great selections. And I don't know, I mean, personally right now, yesterday I was on a little bit of a project while I still had a little bit of time off, and I needed to wrap something up, where I even broke out. We have this soft transition focus lens for, I had a talking head subject, and I was like, I just want to see how it works, because basically they have all these great elements that are working around inside to give you the image and help you create the stories that you need, that you want to take. I just saw, do we have a hand raised? Who's raising their hand?
I see a David Sanders with it.
Who's David Sanders?
David, please ask your questions in the Q&A portal.
Okay, there it is. Okay, got it. Sorry, that just popped right up in the middle of my screen, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's an emergency. Okay. Some basics here. Application. All right, we're going to talk about run and gun. We're going to talk about set pieces. Now, Manny, what do you think about in regards to run and gun? How do you set yourself up and get mentally set, and then kind of go over a little bit about what you think run and gun is?
Well, I try to figure out the story first, what we're gonna do, what we're trying to tell. Then I try to equip my camera package to be, if it's something like a behind the scenes documentary, I have to pack light, zoom lenses to minimize the amount of lenses I have, audio equipment, usually on camera, wireless lavaliers. It all depends on what you're shooting. If you're shooting a wedding, same thing, pack light. But if you're shooting a feature or something where you have time to be with the talent, bring as many paintbrushes as you can.
Exactly, and I think that that's almost, it's impressive. Actually, I had a slide in here that is no longer available for whatever reason, but it had to deal with limiting unpredictability. So because when you're dealing with sets and controlled environments with set pieces, you have the majority of control almost everything that you're doing, from having a bigger staff, so you have more arms and legs to do and equip yourself for lighting, gelling, all that other stuff. Whereas the majority of people that run around, whether you're doing weddings or where you're doing short form small business pieces, infomercials, some infomercial on location stuff, you don't really have a lot of time, or you don't have a lot ahead of yourself to kind of know what you're getting into until you get on set, quote unquote, or on location. So it's going to probably put a matter. I think that's where the Sony system itself really made itself very attractive, because you could travel small, you could travel light, and you could get away with some very awesome moving images. I mean, one of the things that I had to do, and actually before I get into this, I wanted to talk about an experience just real quick, is that about a year and a half ago, I had I was a DP on set for a quick shoot for noted jazz musician legend Wynton Marsalis, who is probably one of the best people I've ever met. And basically, we were shooting A7S2s, and we were in his apartment up by Columbus Circle. And so when I went in there, we had no idea what we were going through, but we had 2 lights, we had 2 microphones, we had 2 cameras, and it was, just for a CBS clip that was going to be highlighted for probably about 30 seconds. And it went so well, but again, we didn't have a lot to work with, but when you look for your talent and everything like that, and that engaging moment, getting those priceless moments and being able to put those to tape or disc or whatever, and then get them out there in such a quick matter, it's just really, it separates itself from those of us that had to do all these projects from yesteryear, where we were, buried in tape, DV tapes, beta cams, tape libraries, all that other fun stuff. Which kind of brings us to, kind of what the whole revolution I want to talk about really quick is the DSLR and ILC revolution, which is really why we're here today, is because of a guy named Vince LaForie, used to work for the New York Times. I think it was New York Times, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I don't even know. But basically, he got his hand on a camera that could do video. And then he did this little clip that he posted on YouTube in over, 36 hours. And then millions of views later, people thought, oh, I can do this. And indeed, you can.
Yeah, it was very rudimentary gear, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings us also to the fact, dealing with turning your ILC or your mirrorless system into a pro audio machine, which, up until probably the last 3 or 4 years wasn't the easiest thing in the world. But now with the advancement, especially with Sony's Mishu technology capability, you can pretty much go virtually cableless into your camera, with cameras that up to the A7S III can now do 24-bit linear 4-channel video, which is something we had never seen, below a sub, for $5,000 cinema camcorder, or a run and gun machine. And for people like us, probably that just gives us more added ammunition for what we need to do, especially when you're talking audio resources, like doing 1 channel of a shotgun, doing a lavalier, making sure you get your safety in there so that you definitely have what you need. Because remember, in post-production, especially if you're using multiple camera resources, you need to sync all that up. And Manny, what do you use for that?
Premiere.
Premiere? Okay. Yeah, yes.
I have a scratch audio, good scratch reference audio.
Yeah.
And then use my actual audio and make sure they're both clear and legible. and Premiere actually does a really good job.
I'm actually glad you said that, because that was kind of like what we were getting to. But do you remember when you had all that third-party software that you had to go in? Pluralize? Yeah,
Oh, it was a
Pluralize.
nightmare.
Yes, it was a nightmare. But for the longest time, this one little application that you had to pick up was the only way that you could sync up audio, especially because if it didn't have excessive time code. So that was one thing that always gives me a chuckle when I'm looking at these things. And honestly, if you can see on my screen there, my setup usually, especially from a run and gun or even on location, which some of the stuff which you can see kind of from, let me see if I can even backtrack just a little bit to what I was doing here. And this, oops, sorry, you go back here. With this little guy here, if you can see, that's probably the R3 or R4 or whatever that's before, or an S2, but it also definitely has my lavalier mic dropped right on top of it. And right next to it, I have an FS7 too. So I use both of those cameras as my mains just to kind of get different type of angles and fun stuff like that. And I'm usually running an S-Log3. Excuse me. So yes, this is another version of a little bit one of my setups where you have the Michu outlet, and actually I have it. my ECM Sony lavaliers have taken a hit sometimes where people bump into them. This is one of those things that you're going to learn on set or whatever you do, whenever you're on jobs, and photographers do this too. You know, it's almost like having gaffer tape all around. It's like I always have gaffer tape and rubber bands, just so I can stick everything and give that added little make sure that nothing is going to hit it out of the shoe. You know, and because those things are not cheap. Those receivers and transmitters are not cheap, so you want to make sure that that's not letting. But basically, my camera is powering that receiver, so it is powering it. So I don't have to have any batteries in there. I got no cables going anywhere. I basically have that Michu that basically have these electronic pins slid right into my hot shoe. That's basically taking care of anything, including transmitting the signal to disk for me through the processor. So it's really a breath of fresh air for me. That's one less thing I have to worry about, or one less cable I have to worry about.
And nothing's worse than forgetting a cable right before a job.
Yeah. No. And that actually leads us to what these guys are, which a lot of us use. If you can see on my screen, I use solid state drives quite a bit alongside, alongside my whatever camera I'm using right on here. I'll have an Atmos, and I've got a nice little slide of it right here in a second. That's basically where I plug my Ninja 5 up to, and people are going to ask you, like, well, why do you use these big drives or anything? Added storage. The write speeds are great, but now we have these CF Express Type A cards that can blow a lot of these drives away, so now it's got your head scratching. Like, I'll be able to travel even smaller.
Yes. But you always need a monitor. You always need a good monitor. Yeah,
I agree. I agree entirely. But then I look at the S3, and I'm just like, the ratio of hit to miss is very low. I mean, it's always going to hit, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I love that gratification of having a monitor, being able to focus, and just being able to have also another source to record from. So what we're taking a look in here is the Ninja 5 by Atmos, which is a lovely $600 piece of gear that you can pick up at PhotoCare, which is going to take care of basically taking your signal of any ILC really and turning into 10-bit pro video, which we're going to talk about here in just a second, because to be honest, it's good to revisit. But real quick, here is what it kind of looks like from a form factor shape on top of an A7 series. But you're basically taking HDMI out from one end, your camera, and putting it into the monitor, and basically it's taking that uncompressed signal and turning it into 10-bit video. And 4K, by the way. So just real quick, 4K, why you would want to shoot 4K, it's a lot larger than high definition. Standard high definition gives you a lot bigger of a palette to work from. For future proofing, cropping, flexibility, different shot selection, it's just awesome.
You also have an added benefit with the Ninja 5 with the A7S III, 16-bit RAW.
Exactly. Yes. And actually, I haven't tested that. It might even be on this drive. Actually, I haven't even looked at it yet. But I did update the firmware before I left last week and put it on there, and it worked well.
So that's.
But again, so what's 16-bit going to give you though? I mean, I'm just kidding. A lot of color. So when we talk about that, And we talked a little bit about the different types of compression, which we're going to show you here in a timeline real quick coming up. Like the XAVC-HD codec in regards to XAVCS is going to sample better, it's going to process better, it's going to give you a lot better color. So what we're talking about there is 420 versus 422. So 420, basically internal 8-bit, is 256 shades of red, green, and blue. That's pretty easy enough to remember, I guess. But then we get up to 422, which for those of us in the days that used to use Betacam, DVC Pro, a lot of these cameras that basically when we're importing into QuickTime to use on our early edition nonlinear editors, they gave us over 1,056 shades of red, green, and blue. And now that Sony and Atmos have partnered up, and now you can do 16-bit, that's thousands and thousands of colors of red, green, and blue for you to choose from, especially if you're a photographer coming over into video. That gives you a little bit more of that added flexibility that you're used to, especially on the post-production side, so that you can look at all these different type of looks with coming out. Now, that's not to say that white balance everything isn't still very imperative and very important for what you're doing in a video application, but it is giving you a little bit more of a safety net with all those different types of grays. Yeah. So I'll be glad to share with everyone once I actually work with the footage, but in theory, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. So here we just have a simple little gamma curve, as far as what a Rec 2020 looks like. But then we get into frames per second. So as you know, with the A7S III was just released, that actually has 4K throughout and 4K 60, which is a very, very big deal for a full frame sensor camera. And to the fact that somebody created a whole new heat sink to control the heat and signal to noise ratio in this camera, just to make sure that it provides all that wealth of information you want with a 60 frames progressive, even up to 120. So it's such a feat of engineering that I know that it's just, I can't imagine what else could possibly come next now that they actually put all this in this type of small form factor. But when we are talking about different types of frame rates, we're talking about 24, which is typically what you find in your own little cinema, your 30 frame progressive, which starts to really make everything a little bit fluid, all the way to 60p, and usually, like when you're doing interview stuff, that's like a 24p type stuff, but when you're moving around, 60p looks a lot better for any type of moving picture, as far as when your camera angles are changing and you're moving. And sports, so high frame rates, especially for subjects like sports and trying to get anything to make things look slow. Did I miss anything there, Manny?
No,
I'm just buzzing through here.
Buzzing through.
So here we go. Let's see Atmos again.
Yeah, let's get to the fun part.
So let's go to the fun part, editing here. Okay, so the two main environments right now, yeah, like what says why. You look at these little editing bays, and I think the one on the right actually helped outfit that's in Lower Manhattan, but then the one on the left is just a stock footage, but looks similar to a lot of what some of us use in our home offices to basically put together what we like to deliver, or what we're powered to do. So what do you pick out? We get a lot of questions, especially, even for our separate manufacturers. Sony, we're not editors. We did have a Vega system, which was a nonlinear form editing, and we do have software applications that integrate really well with these forms of editors. But which ones do you use? Now, up until 2006 or so, my weapon of choice was always Final Cut Pro. That's a great short form editor that competed quite well with the Avid Media Composer system in regards to long form editing, which was also a lot more expensive at the time and really not as accessible and highly proprietary. Whereas Final Cut was, hey, whatever you got, we're going to take it. But then they decided to change things, and instead of going more towards the pro market, they went more towards consumer, because to basically sell more units. So that's where Adobe came in with Premiere, with a new version of Premiere, which really has a tight looking format, a lot of nice panels that are very similar to Final Cut Pro. So you have your tools outlined right there. You have your project panel up top. You can really change things in windows around, which we're going to see here in a second, because I do have Premiere open up right now because I still use Premiere, even though I do have Final Cut Pro. I am a Mac guy, but I have found that just when you're talking about time is money, shortcuts and everything that can come over a lot easier for me onto Premiere for my Final Cut Pro 6 environment, or even 7.
Yes.
It it's a seamless for me. So you know, when you say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, to some degree, when you have worked with something so much, you know, it's almost like, okay, I'm so used to an Xbox, I'm not going to go to a PlayStation, or vice versa. I work to play, I can't do that, even though a lot of the games are the same. But you know, it's just the way that things and controls and menus are laid out. You're so ingrained with it, you just want to kind of keep going like there. So why don't we go ahead, and I'm going to stop sharing real quick. And Manny, if you want to just, I'm going to get my stuff ready here. If you want to talk about, I don't know, what editor do you use?
I use Premiere and for very specific reason. At PhotoCare, I use Max. At home, I have a custom built PC just for video editing. I can take those same files and project files and bring them back and forth with no problems.
Oh, nice.
So it's platform agnostic.
Oh, well, there we go. Whereas FCP is not.
Mac only.
yeah, Mac only. And for some, you know, some people, and you know what, I am almost exclusively, I've been an Apple guy forever, but I mean, obviously, I think PCs have come so far now that, you know, the editing environment, they're outsourcing the software would do nothing but help them, you know, at some point. But obviously Apple is Apple. So, you know, they've got their own things going on. So if you can see, is my window up as far as my environment, my editing environment, at least on the laptop? Usually, can you see it all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. So first off, and I think this is very important to note, that when my program launches, you have a lot of different panels up at the top here. You have a learning panel, an assembly panel where you can import clips and get them ready to dive over and bring over to your pipeline. The editing one is where I live most of the time, because even so, this looks a lot like my old FCP, my Final Cut Pro layout system. And of course, obviously, you can edit your workspace however you see fit and show whatever you want. You've got your tool panels right over here. You can overlay text and so forth, and it integrates really well, obviously, with After Effects, which is almost like not just a character generator, but it's just a 3D. I mean, it's just so much more than anything. Animations, all that other fun stuff, 3D, 4D art, all that other cool stuff, which obviously certain people get paid an exorbitant amount of money just to do that type of thing, whereas those of us that do editing really get, you know, this is what we do. We do our editing and we'll import those elements in there. You also have a color grading palette here so that you can use anything. You can take a piece of footage here and you can go all over. And then you're basically going to be able to go over and touch and basically be able to edit things, especially like pieces like I have here. Then
this is where you have your log footage, which is very like it's very gray, lack of contrast. You can go in there, add, you know, change your hue saturation levels.
You also have your LUTs here, so if you want to lighten everything up or you want to take certain different kinds of looks. Some are more contrast. It's almost like little gamma curves that you can draw in here, and then you can also be flexible with your footage, bringing up your contrast, dropping it down regarding your highlights, bringing things up, especially, you know, like when you have certain things that you've lost, especially with this natural type of lighting. You want to take advantage of everything you can, and obviously this is really light, but you do have your curves, you have your saturation, you can take film looks and bring them in here. You can import third-party LUTs in here, so you can just do whatever type of one. You have all these different types of looks that come from old film, 35mm film, just differently. I mean, you'll see a lot of, you know, who I see that uses a lot of this type of stuff is almost like Amazon, you know, like they're just going this different, like really faded out stuff and trying to make things look kind of just really weird. Obviously I like, you know, something different, but you know, it's just different. But anyway, that still looks bad. But anyway, moving forward real quick, what you're also going to see here in this type of file, when we look over here, is almost like a little monogram with my initials. So take a guess. What is that? What is that, Manny?
That's a layer.
That's a what?
That's a layer.
Well, but
you have was it a PNG file?
Yeah, well, yes, it is a PNG file, but why would I have that on there?
As a watermark, so you don't get stolen.
Well, not necessarily. Okay, yeah, yes, it is. But it's also because I know that is my proxy file. So when you see this and you see these little things here with proxies, basically, what is a proxy? A proxy, when you bring a lot of this footage, like this was all shot in 4K, And when you're working on older type of architecture or something that's not going to support all of these files at the same time, what you're in here, say, for example, I want to go into my drive, I'm going to be able to go in and I'm going to import, let's see here, if I can go find my Ninja drive, there's the Ninja, and I can scroll down here. But I have all these lists which are called proxy movies. So what this proxy movie does is I have all of the original files still on this drive, but I basically, when I import into Premiere, I basically import and I make it a proxy. And what that means is that it's not the actual file, but it is a smaller version. So instead of being at 4K, it's now at 1080 or even 720, 420, something like that. I imported a very small, a much smaller resolution, so I can scrub quicker and I can see exactly what's going on. And my computer won't lag. I can even do color gradings on here, and then it'll apply to the main file when I want to reattach to the main file. But it's something that I know that I'm always working on the proxy file and it shows my monogram. When I'm not working on the proxy file, I'm using the real footage.
Okay.
It's obviously full, and there's not even the slider crop that you see at the top edges or anything like that. But so I can come around here and I can take a file and I can go, what we want to talk about right now here real quick are, so you want to make a video, right? You want to look for the best angles. I've got my friend Vincent here who I'm working on something with, and he's got this nice little angle here, and I can push my I key, I could type A, and I know now, instead of running through all of this footage, like this is the clip that I'm looking for at the moment with him brushing down over these trees here. And I can hit my out point, and then what I can do is I can just drag this right over here.
So I for in, O for out.
I for in, O for out, correct. And so what that does is that drags you right onto your timeline. So there you have a fully functional part. And if you don't want it, your audio, you can actually, I'm sorry, I've got my Zoom menu over here. I gotta move that again. But you can turn off your audio layers for stuff like that if you've got a nice little music bed, or if you have an interview, some type of voiceover going on all these tracks. But you have all of these, and I guess that is important. I think I jumped ahead myself right now, but these are the video tracks. So you've got video track 1, video track 2, video 3, video 4. You can put on how many you want, really,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. And sometimes you can come out stuff like, like this. This is an old commercial I worked on when I was with the Devils, and you had different types of, overlays going on, different cuts. We had a lot of background stuff going on. I mean, it makes things move a lot smoother. And then obviously you see like little different types of animation art over there. Or you can take something like what I made with, I'm working on a lot of the piece, I do these training pieces for Sony. And so I have to have like where I'm trying to do like segue rolls. So like this is the interior of one of our G Master lenses. So this is a 24-70 G Master, and I've got a couple lights that, I did yellow, red, blue, something like that. So I can take it, I can take my endpoint here, I can do my out point here, and I can drag it over. I can, let's see if I can zoom in here and take this down. I mean, you can, and then I don't really want to get too much down the rabbit hole with this because there are so many things, but obviously doing fades, you can put the footage next to it. You can run it over. I mean, just make sure everything looks seamless. Now, obviously this is 4K footage, so I can take it and I can move it around. And what we can talk about is called keyframing. So if I can set an endpoint keyframe here and I drag it over here a little bit for a time limit of about 5 to 6 seconds, it's going to move. I mean, it's not going to right now because I don't have my effects editing in right now, but that's kind of the premise, exactly what you're doing. But it can add for some really cool transitions. You can do different opacities, different layer properties, so you can overlay, but you have this like, let me see here. Sorry, I usually do it on my big computer, so, I'm trying like, this is awesome. But let's see here, go over here. So I had this all clipped down here, but, I can move it. These are all your different like little things. You can make it a little transparent. So if I have it over here, I can make the transitions a little bit more daunting or something like that. But it's go ahead.
Yeah, Jane. So last week we went over S&Q. Do you have any slow motion footage that we can show how to conform to a proper timeline?
Not right. Honestly, not on this disc. I don't believe I do. Hold on. Let me check on. I have an SD card here. Let me look here. But
Well, if
I
not, you
don't
could just
believe
take
I
some
have
regular
anything.
footage and slow it down.
Yeah, I can speed ramp it for you.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Hold on. That's a good question. Let me just. I want to see what's on this drive real quick, but I don't believe I have anything that's going to be marketable here. Let's see here. What is this? These are obviously my kids. Let me see what this is.
If anyone has any questions, please
Yeah, give me
ask away.
some. Let me see what in here. So I'm importing just from an SD card, so it's going to be totally different. Remember, when we look over here, you're going to see like on your clip properties, because all these clips, this is your bin. So all your clips are being loaded into here. So as you can see, some are 1920 by 1080, some are 1280, some are 720. I got 4K going on here at UHD with 3840. So you have a lot of different things in here. Like, so it's going to ask you all the time, do you want to change the resolution of your timeline for depending on what type of footage you want to come in. So let's just see here. Do I have anything that's at 60 frames? I don't. So, but I could be wrong. 29, 30 frames. Okay, here's something that's at 60. What's this? Oh, okay, so, no, that's my son. So let's just, I got some jiggle jaggle going on there. So let's take that. No, I don't want to do that. Let's do it over here.
I for in, O for out.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see this one. I don't like that one as much. Okay. Okay, I must be testing out. I'm just like making sure my son doesn't suddenly swear or something like that.
Gotcha.
So, okay, so let's try this here. He's turning, doing a quick turn. Okay, there we go. So let's take that. I'm gonna drag it over to my timeline here real quick. Right here, double click on there. And then basically you're gonna be going able into, let me see if my right click has that set on speed duration. And then I can cut it down to about 75%. Do I want to maintain the audio pitch? I'm going to, whatever, frame sampling, frame blending. Let's go frame blending. Go OK. It's going to want to render it. So as you can see a little bit there. Okay, that sounded kind of weird. But you get kind of the idea. That's at 60 frames, but that's how you slow things down. I don't know, Manny, what you normally do as far as how you shift things down, but I normally can go up to about 65%.
Yeah, but also I think I usually use optical flow instead of frame blending.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, that's true.
Every project has its different settings. It depends on how you shot it and which camera it came from.
Yeah, let's go into optical show right there.
Yeah, so those three settings only it basically changes the way it interprets each frame.
Yeah, interpret. Yeah, how? Yeah, basically where the frames merge together, and basically because you are dropping things down, so they want to make it make it as smooth as possible, depending on what you're doing. Yeah. But that's a way, especially with the bigger cameras, like when you're not used to things that are just kind of like rendering in camera for like S&Q or anything like that, or you're just trying to change things up a little bit, especially at 60. Like when you're just running 60 frames progressive and not anything at S&Q, that it'll allow you to get those type of effects. And obviously you have different types of effects that you can change from, different from transitions, generated especially from an image control standpoint, or you have warp stabilizers that are built into here. So what those will do is they'll help stabilize the video a little bit if it's not as smooth as you want it on whatever camera you're using, whatever that's blending out. Does that make sense, Manny? Does that make what I'm saying? I know it. Because honestly, it gets, you can go down the rabbit hole so quick with all of this. It's almost like, I mean, Premiere, all these editors are almost like your new pass, your ticket to admission to video Photoshop. So you can change things. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I can blur and sharpen and Let's see here. I mean, honestly, I don't use a lot of this stuff. Now you have rolling shutter repair. So you can, if you're moving your camera around a lot, you can just drop it down in there, and then basically an effect will come up on your timeline here. It says rolling shutter repair, and basically because it's reading top to bottom. See, and actually, let me turn off that audio because that's freaking me out. Sorry. Okay. And another way to do that, obviously, is because you can unlink your layers there, and I just usually just cut it off. Blah blah blah. So if we take that and run it down, but let me see here. But yeah, you can see the rolling shutter repair that kind of looked kind of cool there. Like it's giving a little bit of effect, and that optical flow as well. Yeah. Because, I mean, now it's out of focus, now it's in focus, and obviously it's trying to render. When you get this nice little red thing over here, it means, it needs to render. So it's just basically giving you like a RAM preview, like however much RAM you have in your computer, just pushing it to the limit to see exactly what you can do. So when it exports, so if you want to export your project, you just go over here, you can export your media. Window's going to pop up. What's it going to be for? You have a lot of nice little presets here. So like, I just want to go out to YouTube, or I want to go to Vimeo. You have one of these things, so it can go ahead and choose all of these wonderful things for you. But of course, you can go in there and customize them and tweak them. You know, as far as if you want to break down your audio to an MPEG instead of uncompressed, just to save on file space, what the bit rates are. All this stuff obviously are workshops in themselves, but they give you these formats, these codecs, especially with H.264 and H.265, which is now an A7S3, which are going to allow you to give better types of quality of video, like whereas Motion JPEG really is not a very good form. It's not very flexible, as another camera company discovered when they released it in one of theirs. But then you have the QuickTime stuff, which a lot of this stuff is already built around. And then you can just pull it out. You figure out your location. If you want to just take it out and you want to type this as test, boom, you can do it. And then you're going to export it. And then basically what it's doing is it's exporting it for you. Whatever the heck I just did. It was for whatever I'm exporting right now, my timeline, because there's a lot of mumbo jumbo down there. And then it's going to compress it for whatever format. Obviously, you had the file size down here. The estimated file size is about 55 megabytes. Now, remember, on a lot of these things, the reason we had to deliver in tape a lot back in the day is just because all these files, I mean, were gigabytes after gigabytes. So a lot of people don't have. That's why a lot of people will take around portable solid-state drives now. And remember, when you're picking out a solid-state drive, especially, I don't know how you subscribe to this, Manny, but this is my rule of thumb is that I usually keep my main hard drive as bare as I possibly can on my editing computer, so it doesn't bottleneck kind of like this does. I have all my processes closed down, but then I'll have all of they'll have all of my footage and everything like that, everything on very, very fast editing drives. So whereas I think the baseline, it used to be about 300 megabytes per second. Now it's like, I don't even know, what's 5 or 6. I don't even know what drives are going down.
500 is like a SATA-based SSD is 500 megabits per second. Anything NVMe, PCI Express 3, it's about 3 gigabits per second. And PCI Express 4 NVMe is about 5 gigabits per second.
Right. Oh, and while I was thinking about this, I don't even know why I exported the audio. It would have been quicker if I just exported the video. It's like, come on. But, so that's kind of how you have it as far as while I'm letting this kind of fun.
Yeah, that's a light.
It is light. I mean, it can take, I remember I was doing a gig in Miami last year, and they wanted everything 4K for streaming. 4K, they wanted everything downsampled to 1080 Vimeo. And when you're talking 2.5 hour seminars, yeah. I remember this particular computer I just picked up. I'm sorry, it wasn't last year. It was about a year and a half ago. I just picked up this latest and greatest MacBook Pro, and all night it was just the lights were just blinking, just spitting it out to the server because it was just working overload. Yep. Because I had to insert lower thirds and overlays and splits, and it just was so painful. But it took over we're talking one took about 6-7 hours.
Yeah, this is why. So the way I have it set up at home, I have my boot drive, which is an SSD, NVMe SSD, fastest one I could afford. Then I have a work drive. This is where this is an NVMe with all my video assets that I'm working with at the moment. That's where things are being. That's like about 2 TB. Then I have another SSD for exports, because you don't want the drive that you're exporting to be the one that you're reading from.
Right.
That,
Okay.
That halves your input-output speed. So one SSD is right into another, and that will always speed up your workflow. And when you're done with
class on this, this is crazy.
And when you're done with the project and you're finally done, make sure your project files, your proxies, everything like that, put in one folder, put it onto an archival hard disk drive. That's about 8 TB, because you're gonna have a few projects in there, and then just offload the data from your from your work SSD.
Jeez, wow, yeah, man. I don't know what to say that. I don't know what to say that. Hold on, okay, I got QuickTime open here. Let me just see if I can just quickly bust us over.
It's gonna be a very random video file.
It's terrible. This is like avant-garde at best here. So, all right. So here you should see something black, but I'm gonna scrub through it here. Okay, so we've got this video coming out here, and there's your transition, the cheap transition we did. Now let's go scrub over to my son. There's my son.
Let's see how it created the optical flow look.
Pretty good. Yeah, it did really well.
Of course, Zoom is dropping a few frames, but
yeah,
that's fine.
But yeah, I mean, it looked really good. I mean, it's smooth on my end. I was like, man, it shows up really great high res on the screen. So there, and then that is, hold on, let's see let me see. And it is 47.9 megabytes.
With a lot of blank space.
Yeah, for a lot of, that is true. That is the most expensive blank space, yeah. But yeah, oh, this is cool. Hold on, let me look at this. Here, let me show you this real quick. I don't know if I can open it up now. Let me look here. This is my son. Let me see if I can see it. Let me see if I can show you. But this actually is from the A7S III the other day. He's going to kill me when he's older for all this stuff. But this is, but yeah, this is a 16-bit output at S-Log. But obviously it's a 3 GB. It's 4 seconds, and it is over 3 GB for 4 seconds. So yeah, and actually there's a lot of video, but since I don't have as fast a drive as I need to, it splits it up into 4-second increments. But yeah, it looks pretty interesting. So I'll have to check it out. But yeah, so I was told that, I was like, since I didn't have, and this is a 500 megabyte per second G-RAID drive, like 1 terabyte, and I can't, on an SSD, and I had to have a faster drive.
Well, if you think about it, like these, like the new cards, for internal recording, they start at 300 megabits per second, go up from there.
Well, they CF Express 800 megabytes and 900.
That's what you need for 4K 60 at 422.
Exactly. I mean, that's again, I think when people are talking about we need the biggest and the best, you have to really have a checks and balances system by yourself. Yeah, time is money. What's the application? What's your output? Do you need all of it? Do you really need all of that? Because 9 times out of 10 now, like I go back to our first session, I mean, it was mainly, most of these people are still using HD.
Yeah. So it was only like 2 years ago. It's just like, who needs CFast cards? Apparently everyone does now.
No, and then they work great. I mean, honestly, the A7S III it's a monster camera for these type of things. Yeah. And it's a nice, small, robust format that doesn't take up a lot of space. The the processing speed is just astronomical. So it definitely, just when you think that you can't take any more weight off your shoulders as far as what you're doing, especially on set, camera, industry just takes it a little bit more further, which is absolutely, gives you, I would have thought we could have done this in a form factor like this, like taking the power of like a miniature FX9 or, whatever they're doing, the FX6, and put it into this small body. I mean, it just doesn't, it never made complete sense to me that they could do this, knowing what we knew about technology and why cameras were the way they were, what sizes they were. But I'm sure, when P2 technology hit and this first solid state digital drives started, kind of phasing out tape a little bit, it kind of like this could be the future, and then what else is coming soon.
Then once these camcorders started taking SD cards, it was like hallelujah for me.
Yeah, right.
All right, Gene. I think that was an awesome presentation.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks. Honestly, it was it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out.
It worked out. Let's just put it that way. But thank you
Yes.
very much for everyone for coming.
Let me do some housekeeping, everyone.
sir.
So we have a few more events next week. A few canon events, a phase 1 event. You need to sign up and need to register if you want to, ask your questions and make sure you get in. Let me share my screen. There you go. So you go to photocare.com. You have our events page. You have our Canon R6 event on Thursday, October 1st. Next Tuesday, we have an R6 event with Rudy Winston. And we have a phase 1 advanced tethering option, IQ4 tethering options with phase 1's John Gilbert. Please make sure to sign up for that. And if you missed any parts of our webinars with Gene, go to our PhotoCare's YouTube page. We have every single part here already uploaded, and I'll be uploading this one shortly in case you missed anything.
That's awesome.
All right.
That is great. That's a good looking page too, man. Wow. It's a lot of talent on that page.
Right? All right. Let me do the links. Boom. If you go into the chat window, you will see all the relevant links, email, support numbers. And with that, thank you so much, Gene. You've been great.
No, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's always great to talk to you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Stay safe out there.
Will do. You too. All right. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Take care. Bye.
See you.